Hello! I guess we're streaming now. Um, we will see as soon as we've got our browser open and my mirror's going okay. Audio is applying itself. We're going through the correct microphone, all that jazz. So just so we're not feeding back, got some little headphones and I can hear in myself. Unmute the thing. Yeah, man, it's all in sync and tune and whatnot. It's using the good mic. We're ready to rock. We haven't streamed for about a week. Had a lot of things, bits and pieces going on, and many streams in the past has been nothing but decal work. So we're going to do a little building today. Save some of the decal work for a little while because the deadline is approaching us, and I need to have the build stuff done first to go into the prolonged Molotov liquid chrome paint sessions. The airbrushing stuff I don't really stream at the moment. Followed by the clear coats, the candy coats, then the deckling work. But today, it's going to be all about modelling. Let's just put ourselves a nice quantity of tea. And get the show on the road. So one of the funnels broke, or it kind of broke during the assembly process, and I did a temporary fix with PVA glue, and that just didn't do the trick well enough. So it's going to need some substantial gluing. And I'm always nervous about working on a painted piece, but for some reason I always like to do it on stream. So it is what it is. Originally I was going to PVA it, though not PVA, super glue it. I think I'll give the plastic cement a go, and if it's a weak bond and falls off next week, then it's going to have to be the Penament super glue and risking a bit of frosting and whatnot. We only want a tiny bit. There is some exposed plastic, and it goes into some painted areas that's obviously going to craze, but if where it crazes occurs where it's hidden, that does not bother me whatsoever. What I don't want to do is put far too much glue that it oozes out, oozes down the sides, and absolutely ruins our lovely mirror painted finish. So these funnel pieces did come out quite nicely. So I'm feeling a bit of bondage going on. Just got to make sure it's on nice and tight. It's not crooked, it's not bending. When I did the PVA glue, there was too much plastic sticking up and it bended. And we'll just rotate them around, make sure it's perfectly straight. And melting two surfaces of plastic, bonding to make a single bond is the goal we are going for. And it kind of just tilted a bit with weight. We'll apply a bit of force and hold it for about 30 or so seconds. But the idea is when you bond two surfaces, you're melting it and you're sticking it together. It doesn't become one true piece of plastic. There'll always be a weakness there, but the idea is for the two surfaces to have keys and anchors and whatnot to make it nice and solid. It hasn't been melted down to a liquid form and molded in one shape. It's just two partially melted surfaces in an almost putty state, and it's only joined by those two surfaces. So it's showing signs of not being super strong, though it might do the trick until I put it down and bent the fuck out of it. So that is kind of shit, though. It is what it is. We're going to mount it on this little skewer, bond it together again, mount her up, make sure it's nice and straight, and we'll put it aside to dry, and hopefully it'll stay nice and strong, because giving it a bit of a more violent shake, it is attached. though it is only attached to a small component. So let's mount this with its others. Let's crooked again. Make sure it's straight. I don't want it to be crooked, because if it's crooked, it'll be noticeable. It'll stand out. It will ruin the model. Okay, good. Just going to put that aside. That's all set. That's done. That's good. Let's get into the very good bits. Now, I'm not working on the brum bar. The brum bar is actually already completely done. I'm only utilizing the box. The sandpaper inside of here looks like it's all rat shit except for the 1500. So we're going to have to cut some new pieces. The 1800's nice. So that's not as much sandpaper as I thought I would need to cut. Too bloody easy. Okay, so we'll put the glue away. Sort out what parts we need to work on. We'll talk about the parts as well. Would like to get a decent amount done. Need to find my sandpaper bag. And this is 320. Oh, it's already got 320 written there. Which is good, because that pen's not working too well. Whew. $320 and $240. Unless it's fresh, even though it's kind of all crumpled and crapped up. That's ideal. So $240. So that way we know what we are playing with. Got a little bit of a dish of water up in front of us. And now for the magic, our components. It's quite a bit to do. Some bits and pieces that do not need to be in there. I need to get more of that out before I leave for the week. That way I've got material to work with. So what I've done is, there was a part that went in there, a part of the Providence. And it fits somewhat like this. And it's going to show off quite a bit of the inner detail, because the part there was very, very mundane and boring. So I thought, why not show the inside? I did think about putting a mesh, but there's stuff that's actually sticking out. So it's going to be a bit like a hot rod, where you got components that are quite visible. So that's quite nice. And when we cut that out, that was all quite rough. Now, this one's not a good example, because I've already started sanding that part. I've sanded that one, but this one I haven't. You can see it's extremely rough, and not as nice looking as the other two. So that needs to be all chopped up and taken care of. I need to put a bit of a cross plate on the inner frame on this component. The rest of the inner frame needs no work, though I shall detail this blue bit. The blue bit, I will have to think of a color, which I'll just probably make it red, I guess. It goes in the corner. And the legs I can't really, or the feet I can't really do much. I might put a bit of styrene plating, a bit of detail, though it's nothing that I can achieve too much with. So let's have a look. Yeah, I don't have any appropriate cross plate or whatnot to play with. I will do some styrene work just so it's not absolutely normal. Now, if I remember, it would be these two cross plates going on there. Though they're going to have to be chamfered. Now, I have a new toy. This is a file plate. It's a file on a bit of stainless instead of just a small traditional file. And I could actually show this off today, so that's going to be really, really cool. We're going to cut out our two cross plates and cement it right on the inner frame so we don't have to look or deal with it. Now, the problem with the Bakir modelling support goods stuff, which I should have a bagged one here. There we go. So it looks like this when you buy it from the shop. They're quite raised. They're very, very old. They're designed for chunkier, less detailed kits like the Frame Arms series and the... there was a game that was associated, a very big chunky mechs. So they were associated with that, the classic Zoids, all those bits and pieces. And the Bakir modelling support goods were designed where there's a lot of plain areas. You could glue these components to blend in and look like they belong. They were very popular and people gravitated towards them for Gundams. This put Bandai in a hiff and they made their own line, which was large, about the same price to double the price, and you had 4 times the runner and the runners were doubled. And besides things like the... Oh, what did you have? You had the 144, 100 mobile crew. You had all sorts of things like that. So going down, you slide it a few times, and our nub is completely gone. Yeah, things like the verniers, the thrusters, the crossplate, those by Bandai were just absolutely terrible. Though their mobile working crew and the Xeon symbols and their shields and whatnot, missile pods, were kind of cool. So they were hit and miss. They had some effect parts which were popular. So that's all cleaned up. Though they kind of failed where Bakir had a giant line. They've been doing it for about 10, 15 years, and they're still going hard now, making bigger and more fancier weapons. They had a Gatling gun that rotated and all sorts of goodies. So these are, they're extruded. They're very thick, very squarish, and just plastering on a Gundam looks like you've just put, which is about 1 mil by our eyes, amp it up to a Gundam size, 144, 100. You're putting about 1 foot to 2 feet of a metal plate just already on a piece of armor that's just sticking out that much. It's just not right. It doesn't belong to all the heavy chamfers and detail and the composition of any of the Gundams. And how some of the more experienced models back in the day and today did was they would actually cut panels out where you could actually insert them in and sand them down where they look like they're molded in or a part of the whole thing. So what I'm going to do is chamfer down the corners to look like it's stepping up on an incline instead of just being this so it's going up on an incline, on a slope, instead of just being these ragged steps that are stepping up, that's just been tack welded on, slapped on, which you wouldn't just slap on anything that thick to a machine of that size. any modification or changes you would have made in the canon universe would be well thought out and well engineered, not junkyard repairs. So chamfering it up really does bring up that detail and level of thoughts. Though it does take a while to file all those corners, which I'm doing right now, into a 45 degrees slope. And doing it straight so it's not more slopey on one end, less slopey on the other, a bit cockeyed, which is not right. And that's the last end. And beautiful thing being a corner has very little material. It just grinds down super, super quick. Though still, the process of making it all even across the four sides is a lengthy period opposed to just cutting it out, removing the nubs. Some people don't even do that, and slapping it on. So it's time consuming, but it's a level of detail that is not noticeable. If it's not noticeable and it blends in, then you've pretty much done it right. Where if it stands out, it's standing out for the wrong reason. It looks like it's tacked in. It's not molded on. It's not looking like it's flowing, and it just belongs there. And that way, when people just glance over it, they think it's factory made. It's released and intended by Bandai, but there's just something off, and you know it's modified, but not too sure where, how, or why. And that's the result or the feedback that we're looking at. So we've got the two together. You probably almost can't see it from the camera, so I'll pick him up and put him in my hands. They're the two dramatically look like completely different parts and components, even though realistically they are the same thing. There you go. One's got soft edges, one has very hard edges, and the soft edges is what really works out quite nicely. So put that down. I'll just quickly check something for a second. Yep. And let's chamfer the other piece. Now I'm using a Tamiya file for plastic modeling only. It's very interesting that you've got two sets of grooves, a very deep diagonal, and these very, very fine lines that are going horizontally. Now, the beautiful thing is the horizontal lines, the angular lines does all the material removal, and it's very rough, it's very harsh. But the horizontal lines does the polishing and material and just removing of the excess material that's been removed and just dropping it off somewhere. And this just does a really smooth cut, and in some ways you can just file with this and do no further polishing or work. So there we go. Just digging into that chamfer. I'm just worried to lose the other cross plate, so I just can't sit too well on the green background. I saw a pink self-healing cutting mat, and it's not because pink is a nice or appealing color, though not being drab or dark, it would stand out and contrast with anything that's of a modeling color. It'd be so much easier to work with. So we're filing away at the corner, and we're looking for that defined step cutaway, which we've just achieved. But out of all seriousness, these are Tamiya files. Between that and the file plate, that's all the filing tools I really need. It's a wonderful, wonderful product. Really good investment. Very expensive though. In Japan, they go for between 3 to 5,000 yen, depending on what size you get. Once that starts heading to the west and whatnot, it's just revoltingly expensive. If you ever go to Japan, instead of looking just to focus on buying a ton of cheap kits or other crap or weeb stuff, and you're looking to invest in tools and whatnot, these should be one of the things that you chuck on your tool list. So once you buy them off, HLJ or whatever, it's start even from a hobby shop. If they go to the trouble of getting it in, you're looking to close to $100 if they're getting it retail. They're doubling it. They're adding shipping and tax to it. That's $100 product. Where if you buy it at the right place in Japan, it could be quite cheap. Or if you've got a friend in Japan or going to Japan, Hong Kong, China, Taiwan, it should be sourced anywhere there as well at a very, very cheap rate, because I know a lot of my Caucasian country brothers, States, Australia, UK, whatnot. You might travel there on holiday or something. To a lot of my Asian brothers, you've got family there, you got friends there, you're going there. And there's great hobby shops in China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, all those places. And they could be just as much as a modelling haven as Japan. Japan's just got that thing of, giant cluster mechas of Akihabara and all that, and the Gundam statue, and that's just a lot of fun. And it's definitely an experience, very, very much worthwhile visiting, shopping, doing the whole experience. Checking out events, checking out modelling displays, going to Volks, the hobby shop, and then you've got all sorts of awesome stuff on display. A lot of people hype on and on and on and on about Yellow Submarine, though it's a bit overrated. Used to be a really good place for modelling and whatnot, and the selling of parts and all that, though they've gotten more heavily into card gaming, or at least the last time I was there, it's 2015. Since a lot of people are talking about it more as a modelling thing, they might have gone back to the modelling scene. I don't know. It's just a thing for businesses to change. I'm just having a look to make sure I'm getting it right. I think I need to file it a little further because it's not quite the same as the other part. And just get that nice angle going. We'll pick up the parts with a hobby knife via the inside of the cross bit, digging the blade into the edge of the detail to look like it's just a part of the edge, and we'll plastic cement it into place. After it's dried, the next day, just polish up the connecting edges, and that, my friends, is a tight modification that just blends in. It gives that little bit of an armor section, a cross plate. Makes it a little more armored, militaristic of a tank ground dirt look. And then spraying the candy and the Molotov and whatnot, and picking it up and just not seeing the glue stains, the join issues or whatever. The light will reflect off that and just pick up the edges and whatnot. Ooh, just, grasping onto something so small and filing away is straining the hand a bit. So we'll finish this up and we'll do another activity that's not hurting the wrist as much. Soon as I've got it filed down nicely, and we just need to remove a little more material. Take a quick break. Alright, so working through that chamfer, and we've pretty much reached the point we're looking for. So we've got those corners cut off. It looks like it's on an incline of 45 degrees. It's molding onto the material. And where I've drawn in with the Gundam marker, I do love Gundam markers for notating on the plastic where I'm going to cut, where I'm going to bend, where I'm going to glue things. There's a reminder. add a bit of detail there. Utilize a bit of plastic cement. I have a mix of two, Tamiya extra thin, Tamiya extra thin quick type. Quick type is a glue on its own, though I like to call it an accelerator. It dries so quick if you apply and sandwich, it's already dried. You're meant to put two surfaces together and then run the brush through. What I like to do is apply extra thin or standard glue, doesn't matter. Then you apply a bit of the extra quick, and when you put the two surfaces together, it practically instantly bonds. That's absolutely awesome. So, as I've drawn for Gundam marker the outline, able to just perfectly place it, little adjustment as possible. And we've got that little bit of a raised plate right on the tippy toe of the upper ankle armor. Now, I did have to move it ever so slightly, so that's dragging plastic on plastic with the solvent. Will rough up the surface ever so slightly. A bit of the glue has oozed and sandwiched out. Once that dries, a bit of sandpaper, polish it up, and it will look like it's all together. I will be doing that tomorrow. Glue does tack together in about half an hour to 2 hours, dries, but it dries to a putty state. It's still soft. If you do any cutting, any sanding, any moving around, all it's going to do is scar the plastic, spread the solvent out, and just cause more drama, more issues. By allowing the maximum amount of time till it sets back to its temperate plastic solid state, you're dealing with just a hard material that you can cut, polish, remove until you achieve the plain, smooth surface that you wish to apply the primer, paint, all of that good stuff on. It's the same story, mixing of extra thin with extra thin quick type. Not too worried about cross-contamination or anything. It's the same product, just one has more of a components that quickens the drying time. Such a little cross-contamination of liquids will not affect or turn anything off or spoil. So that's on there. Compare the two last minute just to make sure that they're both squared, they look good together, they're symmetrical, and that is a good modification. There will be a little more styrene work and whatnot, not too much. Probably little indent areas. I put some 2 circles, something akin to a rivet. The rest of it, nothing except for the top of the kneecaps. So these we won't be touching anymore tonight. And the feet we won't either be working on either. The rest of the stuff we'll be carrying on is from out of this box. Let's put the glues away. Don't want the solvents to evaporate out, not to become useful anymore. We've got these four. And these will take a little bit of work. Now this one is as finished as we can get it. Though I'll do a little more sanding on the inside. 240, 320, 1000 grit. And what I used is an ultrasonic cutter to cut this out. And it was rough as guts. Cleaned it up with a knife and I hit it with some 200 grit sandpaper. Now, in a very light manner. Now with the corner of this, I'm going to smooth it out a bit further with the 320. Sorry, the 240. Move to the 320 to polish it up. 1000 grit. And then I'm going to rim a little putty around and sand it a second time later to achieve an almost, it was molded, it was cut out like that by Bandai. And that way people won't be focusing on the edges that are very rough, especially painted in a metallic manner, because there is a little bit of distortion of plastic, some cut marks, some sanding marks, something that's very difficult to remove just by sanding. And we're going to be cutting into the corners, the edges, into the material, and then the hole cut out is going to be distorted. Instead, we will run a liquid putty via a blue tack all the way around, and that will. Well, actually, I might have my micro swabs around. I don't see it. It's going to have to be a toothpick. Rub that around, sand it a second time, and besides just a little further detailing here and there, which I'm going to put a styrene plate over this cover and that cover to look like airline flaps or aircraft flaps. And that's going to make this component tell a whole story of how it's different from the Canon Providence. So that's all cleaned up nicely. Move to the 1000 grit. A lot of water in there. Just it's meant to be some decal water, but I can always get some later. Sort of does evaporate, and it's dirty. I need to change it. It's when you dust and you sand, or when you sand, you pick up dust, and the dust becomes airborne. You breathe it, it pollutes your workplace. Though the dust gravitates to a wet surface, it's quite heavy, so it forms into a droplet of contaminated water. Stays on the sandpaper, and when you dip it, it goes in the water, and fresh water attaches itself to the sandpaper. It's a lubricant. It's gliding the material onto the hard surface. You're removing a little bit of material. It's liquefied, or it's pretty much dissolves in the water, and it goes back in there. It builds up, and it turns into a nasty looking gunk. Though at least you're not breathing it in, so that's pretty good. We'll dry that up with a bit of toilet tissue, and we shall hit some putty on it. So got some toothpicks on the far edge there, and the product we'll be using is Mr. Dissolve Putty. I find this to be an excellent follow-up putty if you're using something like basic type, squadron, anything like that. Oh, it's tight. Those are a very rough putty and have a tendency of shrinking. So when you putty something like a seam or a fault or something, it's not fine enough that you can do a follow-up with that putty. They're a bit dry. And in your paintwork, you're always going to have those small dents or something. So what I did there, I've got a bit of material that's dried and stuck in the thread. I just squeezed it a bit with this, not open it, and it just cracks the material that I'm able to actually open it. There's a bit of a ball bearing in there. Just mix it up a bit. Tad thick. Lovely thing about this stuff as well is you can thin it with lacquer thinner. So if it starts becoming overly too thick, you can return it back to its thin state, or you can thin it further in a separate batch and paint it on or create textures, do all sorts of interesting things. But for now, we're just collecting some on the tip of the toothpick, and I'm just sliding it on the inside only, filling in any of those distortions, those cuts, anything that's just not quite right and even into a flat, bulbous, putty surface. And then later on, that's going to be polished up into a uniform, flat, plain surface. Now, this stuff does shrink, so you want to heap it on and have it raised opposed to being leveled. The sanding process is there to even it out. The putty process is to just fill in where the sanding can't reach. So that's all getting the little edges and corners that we desire and we're after. And tomorrow, No, probably more so Monday night when I'll have time to model. Tomorrow I'll probably decal. Monday night I will sand this up. So that gives it a 48 period time. That's guaranteed to be nice and hard. Now, this skins over and becomes or appears hard in a very short period of time. It dries semi-transparent. Though don't be fooled, just like everything else, it does have a long curing process. 24 hours is a good amount of time, though it can appear that it can be touched, cut, and some heavy work done in a matter of hours instead of 24 hours. Though, rule of thumb, wait 24 hours, you're not going to have any tears. I think I just might have got a bit of gunk on the side there. Wipe as much off, and that will have to be polished at a later date. So that's what we're looking for. Some of it might have spilt over. A bit of sandpaper on the edges can grind that down flat. On the inside, I don't care. That's not going to be visible whatsoever. Put that aside to dry. Now, close that so it's not causing any problems. And as I've cracked it open and played with it, it should not be too much of an issue. Now, I'm seeing quite a bit of distortion in here. So it looks like I've already done all of my carving out with a knife. This will need to be hit with the 1000 grit sandpaper, and we'll get it a bit flatter. Sand a little further, especially here, because obviously the knife can't reach right in there. Polish it down to be a bit finer. And then we are ready to put putty on it. And this process will be done 4 times, and we shall clean up the other components. Now, the goal is I'm sort of following in the schooling of Josh Dorar with how he does some of his modifying. Gets a piece, analyzes it, looks at it, see how it opens up, comes apart like an aircraft. Whereas there's hatches where there's removable of material and whatnot, not so much like a toy or a model kit. And he just goes wild with his imagination how it would be completely stripped down by the maintenance crew, taking a complete mechanical engineering approach to the subject matter. What he likes to do is where the model actually does come apart, he would remove material to make something that's just a 0.2, 0.3 of a mil gap, because that's the limitations of a model kit, and widen that significantly so just a bit of what's underneath can be visual, which the master grade kits does have a wealth of detail and interest that's just not accessible or visual once the model is completely put together. The beautiful thing about removing just a little bit of material, and to consider it that the overall armor, even though its profile is iconic from the shows, games, the comics that you're reading, playing, or whatever, they can be quite boring. And where there is no canon or very little canon information underneath, you could just go wild in the sculpting of the inner detail as long as you follow the law of molding or just putting it together in multiple parts and components. So you can be quite playful, but opening it up just a little further and just having hatches and whatnot opens up the world, and the viewer can see a lot more what is going inside. So where it was quite rough inside of these little edges is a lot smoother, a lot plainer. This 200 grit sandpaper or 180 grit sandpaper has done its magic. We can keep moving down. 200 will remove the last of the material that didn't, as well as hide and bury or polish over the scars that are left over from the thicker. We will scale down continuously until it's nice and smooth, and the properties of the 1000-2000 grit sandpaper is polishing the material instead of just, it's polishing the material instead of actually removing material. And just in case any material was raised or folded over, just give a little bit of love on the surface. That could be all polished, primed, and compounded later for the sanding process. So that's getting quite smooth. We can apply more force. We can go to a higher grit, 320. And this is going halfway between material removal, halfway between polishing. And the edges of this hole is going to look like it belongs. I was able to do some very complicated cutout with the ultrasonic knife. Not on the edge on the panel, just slightly in. There was some crazed and weird plastic. Carve that out with a knife. Doing all the sanding now. And then afterwards, the putty, the painting, all that. Last layer, 1000 grit. It's actually 1500, but whatever. Does the same process. And that's just beautifully, beautifully all polished up. And polished the surface up a bit, if any damage has occurred. And now I've got it very smooth. To the eyes, it looks really good. And it's probably good enough. Primer and paint will definitely tell a different story, and it'll cast a sort of shadow where we'll be able to see stuff. I suppose a matte finish shows one sort of faults, and a gloss shows a different set of faults. And the matteness that's going to come with the primer tells us the other story. We can fix that, and once painting occurs, we can get that perfect finish we are looking for. So that's all nice. It's dry. It's looking all right. Time to give us the putty treatment. We'll just clean up the tip a bit, and we probably won't be using that tissue anymore. Wet the whistle. Need to keep an eye on the time because I will be heading to work. I'll be at work in about 3 hours time. I want to finish stream in 2 hours, so I can. Well, I want to finish stream in 2 hours time, so I can prepare, get dressed, and head over to work. As much as I'd love to do this as a full-time gig, it's sad that I got a day job to do something that, you know, I don't quite dig. So interestingly enough, I might be the only person streaming a Gunpla thing tonight. Though it looks like someone else is streaming elsewhere, so that's alright. Keep up the good work. The edges, now, we've got a cut in here, so that's not too good. That's going to show up as an error, and it's a bit jagged underneath, so there's a little raised material here. That's removed. That's quite flat. Remove that. Remove that. And the rest can be dealt with putty and sanding. Beautiful. So heaping it on just the tip, we're able to drag it across. And having in that sort of concave, heaped putty look, it's going to fill in anything we do not want to accent or show off from the gloss paint finish. It's going to dry a bit flatter. It's going to shrink for sure, but at least what we're hiding has been completely covered. And re-flatten that out with the sandpaper. Only do that when it's fully dry, not when it's in its putty state or not quite dry, because you're just dragging material around and scouring it, not necessarily addressing it properly. And as I said, I will contend with it in 2 days' time. And that's going to leave us with a very nice in a cutout finish. Where we have the really bad cut that's happening along here, we'll heap it nice and thick, maybe overly too much putty, so when it shrinks, the shrinkage will still be sticking over the cut, and the sanding process can just remove all that excess material away, and we're going to have something nice going on. It's going to be that ideal inner cutout. Okay. That's all filling in very, very nicely. Should have all the edges covered. Yes, it's all covered now. We've got to repeat all of this 2 more times. Yay. Just chuck that somewhere where it's not going to leave putty to gunk up and destroy the whole place. Now this is the raw cutout with the ultrasonic knife. Not the most delicate and smoothest of tools. It's absolute chaos in there. And to compare it with something that's as smooth as that was before the putty stage, yeah, you can see that the ultrasonic knife is a powerful tool. It's really, really good, really handy. You could do some very complex stuff. It also saves time that you can use other methods, such as drilling a ton of holes and then just keep carving and carving and carving. So the cutout we're doing is completely possible by using a pin vise and knife. Realistically, anything the ultrasonic knife can do, you can definitely do by hand. All the ultrasonic knife does is just speed up the whole process. So all we're really doing is just carving away all the hairy, melty, raised, crazed plastic. Just carving it down right to the very edge or surface of the panel outline. And then we will move on to the 1800 grit sandpaper. Since it's getting a bit circular in my chatting, ooh, that was a bit of a large piece. Need to do it in thin percentage, like wafer or paper thin layers. Don't dig just a giant amount of material and gouge it out, because you'll stretch your knife into where you don't want to cut. Now, the other day, what did I do? I went to do some fundraising for the salt mines to get some dosh up for the injection molding project I'm doing. So I packed up my stuff and went to the Nunawading Wargaming Association sales night. And I had a hall in Mitcham, the Mitcham Uniting Church. And in the main hall, probably had about 20 to 30 tables, each with a wargaming or scale modelling themed trader. Lots of 72nd tanks, some aircraft, Warhammer, figures galore, all of that sort of thing. So I brought along a couple of crates, and a while ago, last year, at Angie's Hobbies, I bought a whole collection of hat miniatures. That was around the Napoleonic period, World War I period. Lots of wagons, cavalry, soldiers, horses, that sort of thing. So I bought about 30 models off the chap, and got it at a very good rate where I could flip them at $10 a piece, which is a good $5 to $10 under traditional retail, and especially since hat miniatures cannot be found easily anymore. So I took that along, and just as the doors opened and things started, I set up immediately and just did absolute gangbusters for the next 2.5 hours. and raised a whopping $340 through the sale of just those kits mostly. Probably about $50-$60 in tools. That also thinned out the stock lot I had and went into the salt mines balance sheet, which is for the month of April and March. And what I'm doing with that is that amount is going to be cut in half. Half goes back into the salt mines, and I'll be doing a very, very large order to stock up on airbrush parts, tools, a few airbrushes, bits and pieces to sell for the big events that are coming up. And the other half is going straight into the kitty for the ultrasonic, not the ultrasonic cutter, the injection molding machine. Looking at the numbers, I reckon there's going to be at least $700 to $1,000 that will be going straight into the kitty. So that's very good. So I think I've made about $500 to $2,000 in 2 months. That is really nothing to sneeze at. It's a decent effort. I would like to just put the whole amount into the kitty, though I've got 2 big events coming up. Near the end of next month is Japan Festival, Box Hill Japan Festival. I've spent $100 to have a table in the main hall, and that's going to have a lot of gunplay. I was in the worst spot at the cheapest table last year, and I got so much traffic across my 2 tables. Fairly mediocre stock. There was $1,000 turnover. So what I would like to do with better stock, more superior bits and pieces, tiered with tools and stuff, a mixture of kits and some military, mostly gunpla, a lot of cheap old snappy bits, some SDs, and most importantly, bigger kits. I'm going to have a master grade and a few of those. Well, they're not bootlegs, but intellectually stolen kits. The ones from Hong Kong and China and all that. The big busts of the Sinanju and Red Frame and all that. All the Titan Gundam. The Zaku tanks. Those sort of bits and pieces. So I'll have a lot of those. I believe I've got a Dragon Momoko 00 variant that's out of production due to the whole seizure thing and whatnot. And if I sell a couple of the big ones, I'd do very well with the small ones. I would like to project 500 for that event. And then the big one, early June, the IPMS Australian Model Expo, or the Open Australian Model Competition. I've got a big traders booth on the main traders hall, and the reason why I need to be very well stocked is to service that. And that is going to be the big one. I have to at least turn over 1,000 at that one, though the sort of stock that I'm going to have, the amount of people going through, the mix of bits and pieces I have, I reckon that's going to be the big one. It's going to be 3 solid working days over a long weekend where there's going to be many, many hundreds of people going through the door looking for kits, looking for tools, looking to view stuff, just have a good time. It is the biggest scale modelling event in Australia, and one of the premier events in the Southern Hemisphere. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait. I always have a good time at those events. When I went by myself, when I went with my friends, the whole situation there is going to be a bit different for me this year. I will be by myself, but I'm going to have fun no matter what because I've got mates overseas and interstate and whatnot. It's going to come in, say hi by the table, all that sort of thing. Last year, I was just in the swap and sell area, 2 hours, very, very tiny table. I brought some stuff and met people around the hall, special orders and whatnot, and that did just crazingly, insanely, very, very well for just a bunch of secondhand, shoddy military kits and hand-me-downs, 2 tiny boxes of tools, and yeah, that just went popping really, really, really well. So a proper trader's booth for 3 days, that's just going to absolutely kill it. And I'm hoping that event will drag over the last of the funds I need, or almost completely raise what's left over for the big goal. There's been quite a bit of support and some ideas thrown in. Very, very excited to pull that off. So we've been hitting this with the 180 grit for a little while when it was a bit hairy, and now it's a lot smoother, it's a lot nicer. I've got one more hairy one left, and you can see there's just a huge difference in how it's looking. That level and amount of work is really ideal and absolutely worthwhile. I lost 2 pieces. There. That's okay. I'll stand up in a second, but yeah, that sits in there very, very nicely. It accents exactly the effect I'm looking at. Now, I didn't lose 2 pieces. I've only lost 1 piece. And we've got that bit there. That goes together like so, compared to the other side. Yes, that's correct. You need to compare. Snaps in perfectly. So there we go. Don't want to be losing any bits and pieces on my dark clothing. So yeah, that's hairy. This is not. Now we can move our way down the scale. Define it a bit, smooth it out a bit, chuck the putty on, and we're laughing. So yeah, we're getting really, really close. A lot of hard work, a lot of back scene stuff. On the Salt Mine page, I really do like to take photos of what the table looks like, the event and all that. But just from as soon as I walked in and just started putting stuff on the table, I started selling immediately. And even though I had a ton of stuff piled on, I just kept going and going and going and going. I did treat myself and bought 2 items, an ICM amphibious armored vehicle, Russian, and the thing that was used in the Chechenian War, and a Leopard, one of those 100 yen, really cheap crane game Japanese motorized kits from the 70s. And between those 2 was about 20 bucks. And they're going to be quite fun to build. I'd like to build those sooner rather than later. Also in tank news, I'm also building the IBG models Type 94 Imperial Japanese tankette, though it has a trailer attached to it. That one is one of their newer releases that I got late last year. Working at it for a while, and managed to chuck on some primer and undercoat. Before I head out, I want to get the yellow on it, and slowly, just session to session, put a little blue tack, build up a little layer, a little blue tack, a little bit of layer. Once that's all removed, some black smoke, some weathering, a wash, decals. It's finished. Very, very cute little thing. And add that to the tank repertoire. It's definitely a model that's not really received much love online. There's a big love for 72nd armor and tanks, though all the heavy hitters like to focus on the 35th market. And at the moment, for the past 3 or 4 years, there's just been huge jumps in manufacturers and techniques and all that sort of stuff. Swap it to 320 grit, especially out of China. The detailed modern kits and change of interest and all that has just been absolutely groundbreaking and crazy. Each kit's now, it comes standard to have the resin bits, the metal barrels, the photo etch, all the decal options, even masking bits and pieces to achieve the camouflage and to make sure the clear bits aren't affected or anything. You'd be able to put out showstoppers and trophy winners by buying these multi-$100 35th giant boxed kits and spending a good 3 to 6 months on them. They recommend a lot of the polyurethane paints, your Vallejo and whatnot, and the lists pretty much list up multiple manufacturers to get the actual proper paint chip colors to finish them. It's a shake and bake if you're willing to deal with multimedia parts. Not that it's as easy as just snap and win, or snap, color, and win, which is what I like to call the Suzabi version car. But yeah, it's just such an awesome kit, and it just doesn't require the imagination working and freelancing that you need to do on something like an older kit that's from the early 2000s or the 90s, or even going back older, where you have to scribe and add details and chains and aftermarket sets and all that sort of stuff. I'm going to polish up the edges now. And this baby is ready for the putty. Fantastic. So, cutouts and hatches and whatnot, not hard to do whatsoever. Do not fear them. Does require a lot of work. And if you invest in that work, you'll get results. Now, there is a little bit of roughage left over, especially in this little hard to reach bit there. The putty is going to deal with that. There's a bit of a cut there, a bit of some weirdness going in that corner. Let's address that. I'm going to quickly check something for 2 seconds and prep myself as well. 1 hour in. 1 hour in, and yeah. You can see how just the hours and the hours can just really sink on some of these modifications, though this particular one is fairly complicated. Alright, so there's quite a bit going on there. That's all very, very cool. Like, bomb out of that. And if I click on that, pretty much winning. So this stream is very, very quiet. Not really talking to anyone. We'll be absolutely honest and transparent about that. But enough's been going on and talky and whatnot that shall definitely be able to chuck this up on YouTube and archive it for people that are into the process of modifying and all the layers and tricks and whatnot to cutting out parts and whatnot. Soon as we're done, I'm going to measure out with some calipers or something these cutouts, the 3 of them, produce them 4 times and stick them on so they're slightly oversized and sticking over. And that's going to look pretty dope. So just bomb out of that. Alright, enough of a break. Let's Chuck some putty on again. This is Mr. Dissolved Putty by Gunzi, Mr. Hobby, whoever you want to call it. They've changed their names a couple of times over the past decade, so it could be excused to refer them via multiple identities. One company ending, another one starting. All of that jazz. And just really heaping on the putty. Just a little more than really needs to be there. It is a product that shrinks. And it's something that sandpaper will make very short work of. And this stuff, because a lot of the pits and the holes and the crevices, the sandpaper can't reach. And if it's more than a couple of micromillimeters, you're not going to be removing that much material, or you'll be removing material to the point where you're going to be over the panel line, and it's just going to ruin the shape or the definition, the effect that you're going for. Filling it in and then removing the excess material will make it all flat and even as desired. So that's all heaped up nicely. It will dry. 24 hours is recommended from my experience. You could probably go a little sooner, but you run the risk of it just not hardening fully in the center or something. I'm seeing a lot of the mistakes that I'm covering up is the same across the other pieces that I've chopped up. So it looks like all the cuts have been reasonably even. Not perfect by far. And this will be enjoyable to sand up later and with the desired finish. I reckon once the flaps have been added and maybe a touch of styrene strips, this component will be completely finished. I thought I would have had to do a lot to make these legs look interesting, but the cutout has just will drag a lot of eye attention to what's happening inside of the legs. So chuck that aside and close it. Start cleaning up the next components, which is this one here. Just like the other ones, it's a bit rough. It's just about a micron away from the seam, well, not the seam, the panel line, and that gives us the grace to carve, sand, clean, and polish it to the bare plastic to exactly where we want the hole to end and meet. And there's a lot of daggy or extra plastic that's hanging on. There we go. And where is my tiny file? There it is. And we're able to... I have to do this for some parts. Other parts you don't need to. And this really gets into some hard to reach areas. The plastic is very, very rough with this one. Well, this one can actually take the bigger file. And just flatten it down so at least we've got a surface for the sandpaper to deal with. Okay. Little bit of material just hanging over, and the knife just cleans it up easily, and the surface the knife can just glide along and collect the raised bits and pieces, almost like as if you were shaving. Slide a blade over your skin and collect any of the sticking out hair follicles, bit of lubrication such as water or foam or something. There's a large thing that's just sticking out, and you just remove it layer by layer. Now take it very slow. I'm going probably pretty quick, though I've done enough cutouts to know what's going on and where to stop and not cut into the material. I've also made enough mistakes. So that's all going very well. There is a bit of a weird collection of junk right into the corners there. The knife is making very smooth, easy work of that. And that's just cleaned up nicely. Right. Just drag along there. Now what I'm worried about is I can see that there's a little dent there, and I think it's crossed right over past the panel line. And that is either going to mean that we're going to have to sand ever so slightly beyond the panel line, which is not a big deal, or we hope that the putty sort of just overbears that tiny cutout, and once sanded back, it should just conform to everything. There we go. Carving up a storm. This is probably the roughest of the cuts. Though once we start heading into the 180 grit sanding and move down the list, it will be absolutely symmetrical and identical to all the other ones. And I'm hoping that even though this is on the side, it will be a point of interest to look at when on display. But, you know, it is what it is. So I'll just cut right into that material. I do love my lower grit sandpapers. Some people think that the 180, 160, 200, 220 is just too harsh. It just overly scratches up plastic, and there's no way around it or out of it. But I completely disagree. I reckon there is some points where it's good to use, though, as long as you step onto multiple grits and play on each other's advantages, you're able to remove material, remove a little less, and then you're at the point where you can polish and hide any evidence that you were using such a such a low grit sandpaper, and that there was a need to remove that sort of detail in that corner. I could see with military kits how every square mil and centimeter there's a lot of detail, and you don't want to remove a lot of material to affect that. Though with science fiction, Gundam kits, that sort of thing, there's just so many barren, large, plain areas that you pretty much got a lot more flexibility than any other discipline of the hobby. Yeah, time check. Hour 12. And we're about 4:30. I'm going to stop all this and end the stream a bit before 6. So we'll see how we go with everything. Now, these edges are starting to smooth out well. Where I thought there was that issue has resolved itself. There is one bit of plastic that's just sticking out so abruptly, the knife will be pulled out again. It's just rough beyond everything else that's around it. And we can hit those areas again with this grit and sort it out. And we're starting to see a lot more smoother outline or cutout, and it's making a lot more sense. It's looking a lot more interesting. Beautiful. I could probably go straight to putting at this stage, but the smoother everything is, the easier it's going to be for the next session of sanding. And hopefully what my goals are in rushing along with the legs is I would like to start priming and painting the legs next week. get the backpack done, and then that way we can just keep smashing painting, polishing, deckling, painting, polishing, deckling. There's a absolutely ton of deckling I need to do. I really need to just sit down and just do a solid 6, 8, 10 hours of deckling and really get ahead of the game. And that should probably make me feel a little bit less anxious about the timeline, because I am feeling a bit that things are creeping up, as I want this to be finished by the second week of June to enter it in the Model Expo. There'll be 2 categories, Gundam Open, Gundam Out of the Box. It's safe to assume that even though I haven't introduced a lot of materials besides the gun, this is definitely going into Open. And with the polishing, the metal look, all the decals, and the custom base, which I could show off the base now, definitely will do that. It's good to stand up occasionally. The base is absolutely finished. Look at that. Zodiac Alliance of Freedom Treaty. It's matted. It's finished. It's not 100% perfect. There's a bit of a weird bulge on it, but yeah, it's exactly what I wanted. Now I could put the clear crane bit on it, which I'll do at the end of the stream. Though I might finish the stream a tad earlier, depending on how quiet or how busy the viewership is. So I do want to chuck a little yellow on my Imperial Japanese tank. So where were we? We're going to move on to the next step. So yeah, I've got a lot more other parts that are as rough as guts, such as this one, which is not a good example because I've already cleaned that up. Yeah, it's a bit rough. Want to clean and sand these up, but a lot of these other cutouts, you can see they're not as ambitious and crazy, and you can see that the cleanup process is going to be far more quicker, and in some places will not even require the putty stage. So they weren't as hard to get into as cutting in the middle of material. When you're cutting the edge off something, very, very easy. Just keep sanding until it's nice and flat. Once we're dealing with the center of something, that's a complete different kettle of fish. I've also considered cutting here and here, having them separate and sticking them together like the Q ballet, though that's going to make the part to stick on and stay a lot harder. So what I'll do is I'll carve out the panel there or something, so it's just a lot more exaggerated, which is not a bad idea. I could do that as soon as I can, or as soon as I'm finished sanding. Generally, when you're painting, reworking the seam of parts is a very, very rewarding situation. Sometimes when you got your layer of primer and paints and clear and everything, you go to fill the panel line with a sludge wash. The wash just does not want to fill in there because it's practically full. It's gone over. There's just nothing for the ink to flow through. If you make it far more over-exaggerated, deeper, sharper, then there's definitely something for that thin down paint to run through. That's what we're going to do. Oh, starting to feel good about this component. It's practically all sanded up nicely. Been having a good play with this for an hour, and it did take about half an hour to an hour to do the cutout as well. The crazy amount of hours you can sink in doing these insane modifications. Even though I do the update videos of about 5 to 10 minutes every month, it's just a little hard to appreciate that, oh, I've done some cutouts and check out these mods and stuff. You can't really explain. There's like, oh yeah, put hours and hours and hours into it. But when you can see a small slice of the work in something like a stream or whatnot, it's a good way of appreciating of, because when you're learning how to model, and people are like, oh, just do this, this, and this, and you're done, you see the abridged version. And if someone's going to sit there and build a kit from start to finish for 10 hours, You don't want to do that. But you're probably missing out on a ton of information that you just can't include in those tutorials, or really no one's going to pay attention or watch them, and you just trial error, trial error, trial error, to the point where you need to rediscover that, which is what's really difficult to communicate. So what I'm doing is, I got my hobby knife. Instead of cutting blade forward, we're cutting backwards. Where's the blunt side of the blade? We want that facing forward. You put the tip of the blade in where you want to do the panel, and you just do an ever so light scratch. Just a little scratch. You're coursing the blade across the material, and you're moving such tiny amounts out. Now, when you're doing the molding injection and you're making the molds for these sort of things, you can't have sharp corners in recessed areas. That's why a lot of earlier models had more raised areas than recessed areas, because doing raised areas was so much easier to translate through a milling machine. So everything is smoothed off into a curve. If you stick a knife in there and you scratch it a few times, you can create a more sharper corner or cut or a V that paint and whatnot can flood down there, and it floods down there to the point where there's still plenty of space left over for your wash. And you could do this again after priming, and it just works a bit better. And this way, because we've actually got a physical hole going down there now, it casts a bit of a natural tiny, micromillimeter shadow that's a little more nicer to look at when it's a finished model. And just doing that, which again, it's a very, very, very lengthy process, it just adds that extra layer of definition that will make one model stand out from another model that's just the bare basic toy. And all Bandai kits are considered marketable, classed as toys. It's what you do with it if you decided that you wanted to be a model, an artwork, or absolutely something else. Okay, 3, 4, sometimes just as much as just 4 or 5 passes is just enough. You can go deeper, you can not go as deep, whatever you want. You don't have to use an expensive chisel, special scribe, a tool, anything like that. Something as basic as that, you're already following what already exists. The back of your blade, it's not even affecting the front bit which you use for cutting and stuff. And you just do a few passes, and when I put the wash down there, it's just going to stand out that little bit nicer. It is going to weaken the material ever so much, and because when you scribe something, you can just put force on it and bend it and snap it. This piece is significantly more fragile until it's attached, permanently glued. If you guys are aware of my style, I like to glue things down. Whoops, wrong way around. I like to glue things down when it's painted. This way. And you can see we've got our little glued on cross plate. We've got the hole sticking through. It's all looking quite sharp, quite nice. What I forgot to do is, even though I've done a little bit of the chiseling or paneling, and every pass it just gets a bit deeper, a bit wider. This is the sort of thing you could do while watching telly or something. Don't go too deep, because you can, course off and gouge off plastic and have a line. You have to sand it and whatnot. Just go really slowly, as minimal material as possible. Now, this is our final putty session for these 4 leg components. Do the edges. I'll get the other 3 bits. Course out those seams. Not seams. Panels. Keep remembering to say panels. Score out those panels a bit further. This is starting to completely empty. I might put a little thinner in it, shake it around, and pour it in a new bottle so it's fall to the top. I won't be doing a lot of building and modifying until this project is finished. And when it's done, three things I really want to focus on. I'm going to go a little away from traditional Gunpla, even though I've got a couple that I want to finish. I want to get more into Star Wars. I want to get more into resin figures and just keep hammering those tanks. And when I return to Gundam, it's going to be more so vintage stuff. It's just lost interest in mainstream Gundams. It's kind of burnt me out a bit, especially with this Providence. It's a lot of work. And I'm also working on a big master grade project for Animasia, which I do a couple of hours a week in public at the shop and airbrushing their Gundam up. And when that Gundam's done, I think I'm going to do a Star Wars kit over there and then back to another Gundam. And if I will do another master grade, I definitely want to do one of those third-party master grades. The one that I'm really dying to jump onto is that Zaku tank. That looks awesome. And since I've got no more responsibilities or anything, I'm pretty much free to model whatever I want. And as I don't really want to focus on, big builds and doing the Gunpla Builders World Cup anymore, can pump out more less ambitious crazy projects. So on the side times, want to be working on molds for that machine for aftermarket products to use on my bench and share out with you guys. Okay, so just getting all those edges down pat. That's all nice and smooth, all heaped up. It's all beautiful. Wipe the tip. The tip. Fuck. Snap that by mistake. Now, I heard there's going to be a big change to YouTube. So a lot of people having trouble with the algorithm and getting demonetized because they're putting, political things and swearing or all these other bits and pieces. And there's a new program YouTube is working on where they're going to pretty much give you a survey for each video you upload, and it's going to get you to tick boxes. Does your video has anything sexual? Yes, no. How sexual? Describe. Does your video have any profanities, violence, this, that? Is it a video game? What is it? Is it news? You're going to talk about atrocities. You're going to talk about sensitive topics. Talk about war, terrorism, all that sort of stuff. And if it's yes, 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 yes to enough stuff, then they know what advertisements they can team you up with. Because there's some advertisements that go, no, we don't want war, we don't want terrorism, we don't want this, we want that, we only want this sort of stuff. And you can actually have the appropriate advertisers still remain monetized, but you only have access to the advertisers that are happy to advertise next to contents like that. So you might not be open for the big thing. So you can at least design your content around what YouTube advertisers want, or advertisers can target people that watch that type of content. So it's probably going to be in the end better for YouTube, though the really big content makers that are a bit on the edgier side of things will suffer. But for everybody else, there's going to be different possibilities. Now, it is bad what does happen to the whole freedom of speech and the edgy YouTubers. It is unfortunate what happens to them. Though at the same time, and I do love the fact that they hold the flag up and do represent everything for freedom of speech on YouTube. Though when they say YouTube is dying, that's a bit incorrect because they aren't quite all of YouTube. There is a lot of family-friendly content being created that aren't really fussed either way, because what YouTube wants does fall in the scope of things that they do. And if there is one or two things that YouTube wants for you to cater around their restrictions in the making of your content, it's not that much of a big deal. I could talk a lot less about profanities. I can not model things as sexy or use sexy tags, and it just works out for me. And I do get demonetized, though sometimes I think that's completely done out of error, especially the videos, Q&A sessions, asking for questions. Not too sure why. There's like a weird bug or something happening there. I know some other people like Zach and whatnot. They make a video and then they have to upload it immediately because they get a Gundam in the mail. They have to build it, review it, and post it up as soon as possible in line with Bandai's release schedule, and being one of the first to review it to get all that interest and views and whatnot. And when that video, after putting all that effort in, when that video goes up and it's demonetized, then you cop, the 70% of the lifetime views it's going to get, and it's demonetized and you dispute it, and then it's remonetized, you missed out on all that money. And it sucks for them. Now, I think YouTube is going through all sorts of growth things. It's not going to die, but it's going to be are you going to keep still water and spinning its tires in the mud, or is it going to overcome these and just grow and grow and grow? Though there's a lot of other big services and whatnot and projects and stuff that are also spinning its wheels in the mud. Facebook's not doing too crash hot. It's making mad money. Fortunately, YouTube's not making a lot of money, but it's attached to Google and it's a greater conglomerate thing, and they do very well in the end. Though Facebook's doing good money, though its user base is not exactly 100% happy. And there's a lot of things going on, the edgy people, political people, all that. Unless you subscribe to one thing, one age, one demographic, you go to YouTube jail, Facebook jail, or you get banned for a week, 24 hours, whatever. You get your page or whole account disabled. And unfortunately, if you're me and there's a few people that don't quite like you and they abuse the flag system, you just get deleted into absolute oblivion. And that just absolutely sucks. Though, shit happens. Shit does happen. Might have a crack at the Gunpla Builders World Cup next year. Not necessarily going to have anyone to go with. Though the first time I went, hung out with Scott Taylor for a few hours, and then I just wandered the city and had a good time for a few hours and went out and did my own thing. I think I'll do that next year. This year I won't, though I would like to go to Japan for about a week and a half or just 1 week. That's coming off my own back, and that's going to be good fun. People have an issue me eating off my dirty ass cutting mat, but whatever, fuck them. I'm bound to do that when I've got an audience sometime in the future. I'm not big on like snacks and chips and all that shit. I was handed a tube of it, and I was sort of like, cool, man. I'm gonna get a thing of chips. Kick ass. Oh, fuck! You see, I went a bit too deep. I stuck into the hole, went up, and it dragged right into the surface material. And it's about some point someone's going to eventually ask, you fuck up, what are you going to do? Well, we're going to adjust that right now. So very lightly, we've got 1,800, and it's just going to lightly tickle that area. And then we go a bit harder, 240. And then we go even harder, 320. Then we polish it up nicely with the 1,000. Wipe the finger, and we're going to drag our fingernail across and see if it just digs into the cut. Doesn't. Completely gone. All solved. No drama. So as I thought I was doing very well at the Twitch game, it's gone a bit backwards, but that's okay. We'll keep working at the grind. keep at it and see if we can pick up later, because it's not a bad thing to. It's just like YouTube. It's just like Facebook. It's just like everything else. Though starting the Facebook grind from scratch and not inviting about 100 friends like that straight in, actually doing it in an honest manner. You sit at like 10 or 20 or 30 followers for ages, and then you have to reach that 100 milestone, and then you go down to a few hundred, and then you get your first 1,000, and doing all that from scratch is it's so tedious. It's almost absolutely insulting, but at the same time there's something very humbling about it, and it's a thing of, well, I've done it once, and if I give up, it's just gonna make the people who were trying to put me down very happy, very pleased I would have achieved something. Just keep going and rebuild. Do it off my own work, efforts, and yeah. If my content stands on its own, it's going to re-attract some of the same people and more people. If my content is worthless, then I will never regain those numbers again. And realistically, if it happens one way or another, I don't care anymore. So that was like almost a 10-year-old Facebook account and a 10-year-old page. It's something you just can't rebuild again. And unfortunately, I'm not really close to the Gundam community or anything anymore. No, whatever. I enjoy this, and that's the important thing. I'm going to create a really, really cool... fuck, I disrupted the putty inside a bit. Well, I'll continue expanding upon this panel line, and then I'll just re-putty it a bit. That should not be an issue whatsoever. So when you putty, when you paint, you fill in all those existing panel lines. If you deepen it yourself, you'll always have something to flow in when you're weathering. And that's going to come out quite nicely. So that's sufficiently deep. We mucked up the putty quite a bit. Do that bit, slide it in. I think I went a little too hard on the other one and kind of messed it up a bit. I need to sort of just hone back and just focus on just going layer by layer. And I could see the tiny shavings of plastic. And occasionally you just do a very super light one to clean it. A clean stroke and a cut stroke. If you get stuck on a dust particle or something, you pop out, you hit the material, and you just leave a really, really, really nasty scratch. All we need to do is about 5 to 7 cuts. It's already deeper, it's sharper, and it's a far more nicer bit of detail than what the molding was able to do. So for our Mr. Dissolve putty, I only need to run down on where I disturbed it. I stuck my finger in some wet putty. I'll just re-putty it again. Not a big deal at all. It's not like I'm going to work on it in a few hours' time. I'm going to wait until it's completely dry and hardened, 24 hours. So it's not going to be any sort of issue in 2 different states of drying and curing. So we've got 2 more of these parts here to rescribe out, and then we'll cut into some styrene plates, cut out some flaps, and glue them on. A quick time check, because I do need to go to work. It's 5 in the morning. We will need to end this stream in 1 hour. That's not too bad. So it's a 2.5 hour stream. That's a typical one that I wanted to do on a weekly basis at least. Though I will do a stream either tomorrow or Monday morning, and that should be it for a few days until I come home again. Because I did the big swap and sell, and I had an extra day of work this week, Couldn't. Fuck! I went too deep and I scratched right into that. But that was a really light scratch. So I'm going to finish, even though it's going to really irk me and upset me. I'm going to finish making and scribing this panel line. I stop and focus because I did a second scratch. I need to stop. I need to do a gentle cut through. And we'll do about 5 to 7 clean cuts. And we shall sand up what damage we have caused. Okay. That one was probably a bit too heavy-handed. That's all right. 1, 2, one more, 3. That's a beautiful panel. So we've scratched the surface, and that's going to come out from painting no matter which way you look at. So this will be the second repair job we do. And with the 120 grit, just lightly, just like if you're rubbing your skin or something. There's just no pressure going down. It's literally holding it on the surface, going side to side. 240, the sort of pressure you would put if you were to stick your finger in your eye. So if you're sort of like, rubbing your eye of like crap or something, that sort of pressure. That's actually a really good analogy. That's the sort of thing I can do when I do a sanding tutorial. Just hold it there side by side. The next one, if you're sticking your finger in your eye. The next one, a little harder. Actually putting a bit force. 320 grit. And 1000 grit, go as hard as you like. Doesn't matter. It's polishing. You're not going to do any damage whatsoever. There we go. That damage is all gone. I cannot see any trace of that scratch. Just dry that surface bit. Have a look. I can see the stress in the plastic, but I cannot see an actual trench, and my fingernail does not detect or come across anything. Meaning, paint is not going to come across it. Alright, so we've got these more complicated edges, and I wanted, when I put a wash along these edges, I want it to look like 2 parts. I don't want the wash to just, wash off. Actually sit on the edge and highlight it far further. And the best way to do that is to have a panel next to an edge. And panels is something that's very difficult to mold in. They're never quite right, and washes just don't really like to flow into it. When you cut your own panel, you can dig as deep into the plastic as you want, and it's not sort of like a beveled or a rounded edge inside the plastic of a few microns. It's going to be a nice angular cut. So you ever notice how there's never really sharp edges in modeling? And this is a perpetual lie that it's so, kids don't cut themselves or poke their eye out or anything like that. It's because sharp edges is really hard to achieve out of a mold. I'm just going to do that really gently. The first few cuts is where you're scoring the plastic and where you're going to repetitively just keep cutting into. So that's really important. And if you fuck up the first one, then creating a second one is really, really difficult, and you'll be at it for a while. So yeah, you can't really mold. You can't really have undercuts. You can't really have sharp corners, because the idea is you want things to funnel. So when you inject in the mold, it just pops out. And all edges is not 90 degrees. There's never a 90-degree object in a mold. They actually need to have a tolerance of about 3 degrees on all surfaces, so the part just funnels out and does not permanently just stay stuck in the metal mold. That's the sort of thing that I've been learning about mold making for my big project, and modifying and cutting and changing details up in a kit makes a lot more sense. What Bandai's thinking, what Tamir's thinking, what any model manufacturer's thinking when they do things. Why some aspects are accurate, why some aspects is not accurate. Why is there a panel line, a seam line, a flash line? all of that makes sense. And you can actually find them by looking at the layout of a runner. And you can now predict where there'll be things like sinkholes and stuff like that. And it just makes the experience so much interesting, where you open up a new fresh set of runners and appreciate certain things and new technologies and slide molds and all that sort of thing. And you can guess how the whole mold process works. I'm keeping my eye on the clock. So, oh, have I done already this one? I've already done this one. So that one's already done. This one's already done. This one's definitely already done. I just felt the need to stick my knife in it for some reason. This one is not done. Ah, you see, I got them confused for sure. I do got to say, I definitely enjoy this whole streaming. This has gotten a bit loose. There we go. This whole streaming experience. It is just another layer of interacting and having fun. Now, I'm seeing like there's like these rounded edges here, and here. And when I'm looking and I'm working and I'm analyzing, what can I change? What can I improve? What can I do different? I was thinking, it's like, maybe I could do a sharp edge there or something. And it's just always thinking. What I might do is just with these bits, I might hit it with the plate file, which is this new awesome tool I've got. It's a file, but it's on a plate. So, oh, there's already a drop of water in there. It's made a bit of a stain. Nah, it's going cool. So I could put just a surface there and rub it up and down and really get sharper corners or sharper edges, or just improve certain details and proportions and things. And that could be pretty cool. Okay, so I've just made a little bit of a scratch. Went too deep into the plastic. Didn't do a good cut. The second cut went straight into the wrong place again. Change the orientation and do about a couple of passes to get the right groove going. Because there must have been a bit of debris, dirt or something. It made my knife hop and cut in the complete wrong direction. And that's definitely not we don't want when scribing. But also, this knife is probably getting a bit blunt, and it's probably not ideal for scribing anymore. I made another error. That's alright. Sand it all up, it won't be a problem. Just get that panel deep enough to have a wash flow through it nicely, and just have it interesting to look at for the viewer's sake once it's sitting on that table. So that's all beautifully done. And just rough it all up a bit. A little bit more force on the second round. And just as I described probably like 5 minutes ago with the last sanding bit. Now, when I scribe, what I should have done, and I wouldn't have had those issues, is kept cleaning my tool in water. It must have had some dust or something. So if you wet your tool and slide it into the panel, it will go smoother because it's lubricated. And just like sandpaper, you're removing the material and the debris on your blade, and it's just working better. Okay, this one's a bit more complicated. We'll try with a lubricated blade. If it's any easier to cut and glide and all that. It's nice and gentle, no pressure, no force, removing the tiniest amount of material on each pass. And just dig into that depth and have an ideal bit of detail. There we go. build up that panel process. Looking forward to Sunday. Sunday night is my anime viewing night. Do watch a little bit. Not a weeb. Probably am a weeb. Not a waifu-loving, gonna fight someone on the internet weeb. Do like to troll weebs, but you know. Can't be edgy anymore on Facebook after what's happened. Okay, can't have too much liquid going on in the panel or it's too distracting, and I'm going to slide out and cut where I don't want to cut. So when you make your first one or two glides, it's really hard to find the trench again to put your knife into and remove the material. There we go. I've only got one more line to go and we're done. So we've got a bit too much shavings and dust. Do a cleaning pass with a wet tip, and that just made easy work of that debris. So there we go, the last of the cutting. So yeah, there's just so much I want to do, not enough time, unlimited amount of content. When I started on YouTube, I had ideas for about 20 to 50 videos. I thought after that, I'll have no idea what to do next after that. It'd just be, you know, repetitively new build, new build, new build. Bloody 700 videos in, and I've got ideas for... if I sat down and wrote down every idea possible leading into the future, it'd be another 700 more videos. I filmed 2 today. One, those are basic tool reviews demonstrations. One's on the plate file. That one came out quite nicely. The whole thing is recorded on the camera bit. The other one's partial pictures, partial camera, so it just makes more sense. And that one is on a beeswax pencil. And that one's very bizarre. It's something I saw on Facebook on one of the military modeling pages for picking up photo etch and small detail and bits and all sorts of cool things. It's a sticky solid wax. And when you push it on a bit, the tip turns into a bit of suction thing, and it picks up tiny things. You apply a bit of glue on it for toothpick, and you slam it right down exactly where you need it to be. So we've just finished sanding what we needed to sand. I just need to add a little more putty to that. So it's either sat in a very funny way, or I must have disturbed it. I think I disturbed it, but I just don't remember doing it. A bit there, a bit there. And we're absolutely winning. Sweet. So those panels have been cut. Now what we need to do is get some styrene. So a decent cut somewhere. Here it is. I don't know if it's enough material, though. We'll see how we go. We'll do scissors cutting, not knife cutting. Need some calipers. Digital calipers are all out of power. Can't find the solar power calipers. Though I've got some manual, really shit, really plastic calipers. You know, calipers are calipers. It all works as long as you know how to read them properly and how to utilize them. I need a Gundam marker. I used to hate Gundam markers. I used to hate them so much and not use them and whatnot because it couldn't work on a painted surface. But it's because I did not understand the Gundam marker. and the impact it makes on material and plastic, and the fact that it paints on plastic beautifully. It's an amazing tool for notation, not for definition. So, okay, what are we looking at? We're looking at about 7 mil. Now I need a fucking ruler. There's no ruler. Of course there's no ruler. There should be a ruler in my toolbox. I got a micro ruler, but I just didn't really want to dig on stream. That's alright. I found it straight away. Cool. Also, I think this ruler is rat shit too. So, oh no, it's not too bad. It's got some crap on it. There we go. So what we need to do, because this piece is just dreadful. There's nothing square about it. So we'll make it square. And this is 1 mil. Sorry, half mil thick. There we go. So if we gun the marker, we can mark it a lot nicer. Scissors. Our workbench is starting to get a bit on the messy side, so I'm just missing or not seeing tools. And yeah, this is it's on the fucking floor. What's the job? This is when things go wrong. That's alright. So what I'm going to do is just gently, ever so gently cut it off the line. And we can use our really, really nice plate file. Just chuck the degree. Every bit of off-cut, every bit of line, everything that you cut off the styrene plastic, store somewhere. Never throw anything out, because you never know when that funny, weird, twisty, strange bit of plastic will come in handy. It's got our plate file. And we can sand it absolutely flat. Nice, isn't it? And it's the whole length of it too. I love this plate file. Very loud though. Sweet. So now we've got a nice right angle to play with. Now, what did I say? 7. So we'll get the calipers again. It's about 7 mil. It's ever so slightly under 7 mil. So I'll go over 7 mil so it looks awesome. There we go. Make a dot there. And how far do we want it to stick out? Well, no, we'll just get like a thing of 7 mil. And we'll cut out a whole 7 mil strip. I'm going to measure multiple points of 7 mil along our styrene strip. And then we shall cast a line like so. And that will get us a nice straight. So it's 7 mil. So it's about 7. Yeah, it's about 7 mil, no matter where you look at it. So how deep do we want it to go? Calipers out again. want it to go by 1 mil at a time. So this is how we could do it. Put that there. Whoops. 1 mil. This way is the front. Put that there. 1 mil. That is the front. Put that there. 1 mil. One more. We're going to definitely need more plastic. 1 mil. We can cut that out. Clean up all the edges. And the edges that will need to be cleaned will be anything that's not this edge here. There we go. And we need some more fronts. That's probably going to be all smudged. I think the last one I fucked up. No, I didn't. Cool. Alright. Maybe my eyes all fuck-eyed. Cool. And we cut down the other end. And sand file the shit out of it. Cool. Cool. At that point, we start chopping. Score it a bit and snap. Now let's have a look. And it goes there perfectly. What I do want to do, because it is a bit big, we're going to chamfer it up a bit and change it around and whatnot. So I want to funnel it down. So how can we do that? Ooh, we can make it into a point. That could make it very cool. We'll play around with the shape. Yeah, that could work awesomely well. Get some clippers. Sharpen it up a bit. And it just needs one more cut. Test it one more time. Yeah. That works. It's going to need like a little extra something, and that's fine. So we'll chop up the rest of these, and we'll shape them up to be the same as that. Right across the line. Snap. Sand. sand. And this is just as easy as just going along the line, and it's going to go find the weakest point and break exactly there. Gets beautifully flattened on our sanding file. Okay, so you can put that aside. So this bit is our masterpiece. And we keep a masterpiece, or otherwise what's going to happen is each piece is going to get bigger or smaller, and it's going to be really, really noticeable, and that's going to be bad. Okay. And our cutters will cut and deal with that. Beautiful. We'll get to put aside. Next component cut. And then we can start cutting the other bits. We'll glue these on. Might even be able to use... what did I drop? I just dropped the pen. I might even be able to use the beeswax pencil. Demonstrate it for you guys. Just ever so forward from the line. And then you sand it back. Until it makes contact with the line. And we've got a nice, flat, identical piece. Okay, last one. And we'll glue these on. We've got our pencil here. We'll just test if it picks up these pieces. Yeah, look at that. Very, very cool. Okay, so that's all squared up. Let's chop the shit out of it. As always, all these tiny triangles, these triangles are all symmetrical, or close-ish to being symmetrical. Don't throw them out. Put them aside. Put them in a bits box. And you'll never know where they just come out and they're just somehow the perfect fit on something else and they can just glue straight on. Okay. Close that up. And file plate away. Beautiful. Trying to keep something this small from screwing around from my fingers is yeah, crazy. Alright, it's time to attach these bits and pieces. Crack out the glue. Time check, half an hour. Might be able to cut a couple more parts out, and that will be it for the session. Our 2.5 hour round robin. And we achieved the attach of 2 parts, the clean up of 4 parts, a few lines, and yeah, that's about it. I think I might end this about 20 minutes instead, so exactly at 2 hours 30 minutes, so I can airbrush my tanks yellow, which I showed at the start of the stream, and get ready for work. So that would make it 6 a.m. in the morning. It's 5 a.m. right now. So putting down some extra thin cement. Put down some extra thin quick type. I use that as an accelerant. And we slam down our fin, which is a little big. And that looks interesting. Something I want to do. Doesn't quite work. Get some tissue. So the thing is all on an angle. So what I'm thinking is I make a little bit of a mark. And I make the same mark on every piece and do a diagonal cut. It'll be interesting. So that the bits just don't quite work. I don't like it. And I reckon with this little minor change, it's going to look more interesting. And then we get the ruler, measure it with the edge. Yes, that's exactly what we're asking for. The problem is it's all too square, it's all too symmetrical. It works too well. So we're going to angle it up a bit, and it's going to be applied at an angle at 2 mil. Course it with the knife a few times, snap, plate file, glue. This is what all scratch building is fabricate something up, test it, attach or don't attach. Okay. Course it a few times. Now, I should have a tool somewhere which is on the other bench. Oh yeah, we also repaired one of the bits at the very start of the stream. Oh, that ended badly. Scalpel to the rescue to clean up. Get our sanding file back. Oh, sorry, our plate back. That cleans it up nicely. That's still a tad sticky, so you can just sort of like tack it on and have a look at it and give us a bit of a thought. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Yes, that's exactly what we're looking for. So we'll re-glue it, reapply it. And there's just one more thing I want to do. Oh, God. And just slightly chamfer off some corners. 1, 2. And glue it one more time. And this will definitely be a final change. Yes. That is exactly what we're looking for. That is very, very interesting. So we'll clean up the last of these bits and apply them. There we go. Nice cut. And you can see with how long I've been just working on this one part, though this is a signature part, so it makes sense why so much work has been done on it. How these modifications can take so long to do. Okay, so that goes back, that comes out. Oh, there's only 2 of them. Nah, I got an idea. The other 2 could just go on flat, like it's recessed in. Yeah, I kind of hate that detail there, so that works. That works perfectly. I knew there was a reason for cutting 4 out. What was just a bit of a stupid mistake turned out to win quite well. Okay, those 2 worked well. Clean up these 2. And then that way it's going to be the same all 4 sides. Yet slightly different. Man, this plate file makes all the difference. It's going to stay as a regular tool for me. Right, so I'll just quickly measure it up, just so it's the right distance. Oh yeah, that's a huge improvement. So how we will do this is, instead of stabbing a hole in it, we will use, we'll try to use it. I think it might be a bit too heavy for the pencil. Right, let's see if it doesn't fall off from glue application. No, stays on for glue application, and she fell. You go butter side up or down? Butter side up. Oh, awesome. Even though I'm going to have like a buttered finger. Come on. Stick him to the bloody blade. Ah, you fucking bastard. Alright. There we go. Try that again. And we'll glue this down. Might have butted the wrong end. Right there. Excellent. And that could be cleaned up and polished up and whatnot. Alright, so chop up this last piece. Look in there. Yeah, as soon as I'm done here and tidy up, we will call it a finished stream. While I'm doing that, I can put these bits of pieces away. Okay. I'll make sure it's all nice and symmetrical. That piece has a slight thing wrong with it. I know it's a bit late in the game. Just straighten it out a bit. And with the hole we made, that just requires a bit of sanding later. Okay, cool. Move you around a bit. Bit down. It's about the same. And there we go. Nice little neat modification. Put a few bits and pieces down and away. And I think that concludes our stream. Thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you guys next time, which will probably most likely be tomorrow. Hopefully that will be a slightly more productive stream. See you later.